So this is one of the most mistaught verses in the Bible that I just recently discussed on my guy Sean Tower live on TikTok, where we were answering questions based on people deconstructing from the Bible and the different challenges that they may go through and breaking down some of the scriptures that they have been brought up to believe in. So go and check out my guy Sean Towers and his page. So a young lady brought up the point that many pastors will convince their congregation that they have more than a mustard seed's level of faith and that they can tell the mountain to go move and it shall be moved. They utilize a verse in the Bible and take it completely out of context in order to get people wrapped up into a state of frenzy where they believe that they are more faithful than anyone else in their surrounding areas or anyone who does not believe in this book. And in doing so, that they should be able to make whatever they're praying about, whether it be health issues, whether it's money, or if it is to grow closer to their God, or if they are praying over relationship issues that they may be suffering through, that they are already fully equipped and just need to stay focused on Jesus, stay focused on God, and they'll be able to achieve whatever it is that they are desiring to achieve. And they will take this verse, which is Matthew chapter 17, verse 20, and take it completely out of context. And that verse says, he said to them, because of your little faith, for truly I say to you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you will say to the mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. And so the church gets all revved up because they believe that nothing will be impossible for them. Now, where this becomes problematic is the fact that the pastor themselves are taking these verses completely out of context, to which they are not explaining how did we get to that particular point. And in understanding how to get to that particular point of this being said, if the pastors were to tell the congregation this, they will begin to lose their congregation. So in Matthew 17, verse 14 through 20, which is a separation within the entire chapter, because Jesus just came from the so-called transfiguration and had told the disciples don't say nothing about what had just happened until he leaves. So it's not a continuation in 14 from the previous verses in 1 through 13. But it states, and when they came to the crowd, a man came up to him and kneeling before him said, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is an epileptic, and he suffers terribly, and for often he falls into the fire and often into the water. And I brought him to your disciples, and they could not heal him. And Jesus answered, O faithless and perverse generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him here to me. And Jesus rebuked him, and the demon came out of him, and the boy was cured instantly. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, why could we not cast it out? And Jesus said to them, because of your little faith. Because of your little faith. For truly I say to you, if you have the faith as a grain of a mustard seed, you will say to the mountain, move from here and to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. So as we can see in these verses, if pastors were to truly teach this in the way that it should be, in the proper context of the information, then what they would teach is that your faith can be measured by your ability to demonstrate the usage of your faith. The usage of, whether you call it the Holy Spirit, the power of God, whatever you want to call it. But by the usage of that, you see, the disciples could not cast out the demon. So therefore, Jesus' response to them was the fact that they lacked the faith of even that of a mustard seed. And since they lacked that faith, they were not able to cast out this demon. It is not until you get through your book into the day of Pentecost that you begin to see that the disciples are now casting out demons and healing people. So the message that pastors should be preaching to their congregation is the fact that if you have faith of a mustard seed, you can test it by going into hospitals and curing people of cancer. If you have at least the amount of faith of a mustard seed, then you should be able to test it by going and curing people who have epilepsy. If you have faith of that of a mustard seed, then you should be able to go into a space, a hospital, a VA clinic, and regrow limbs. But since you are not capable of doing that, since you have not done that, then you are lacking even the faith of a mustard seed. So regardless of how much you speak about your faith, no matter how much you demonstrate your willingness to go to church or dance and jump and sing and do all these things, you do not have at least the faith of a mustard seed. And if you remember your teachings from Paul, Paul explained to you that it is better to have the gift of healing than it is to have the gift of speaking in tongues. Yet most Christians purely seek the gift of speaking in tongues because it cannot be measured, it cannot be demonstrated, it cannot be something that you can go against because it is a faith-based, believing-based thing, not something that can be tested, like healing the sick, healing people who have lost limbs. So if you were actually teaching this in a church, then you will find that most of your congregation would leave, because just as for me, when I came to understand what this is actually teaching, and then looking at what people have been able to demonstrate based on their levels of faith that they claim, that these people are faithless, and that no matter how much you speak about it, no matter how much you claim about it, until it is demonstrated, you do not have that kind of faith. And since no one has been able to prove that they have that amount of faith, no matter how much they follow other tenets, then the fact that it cannot be proven does not make it a factual thing that is possible, since no one has achieved it in all the recorded history of man, the truly recorded history of man. If you want to convince us that your God and your Jesus is correct, that it is the thing that we should believe on and stake our entire life on, then go about the hospitals and prove it. Go into the lands that are drought, filled with drought. Change the weather and prove it. Until you bring that proof, there is no need for me to accept this as something that I should base my life on, which is why we, and those like me, have decided to deconstruct from it, because there is literally almost nothing that you can prove existed in your book. Sure, they talk about different places and people that we can prove existed, but the Bible miracle stuff, y'all have not proved it. And until such time, we will continue to free ourselves, to be ourselves, because our greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.